Welcome to our new series, The Critics of Controversy. In this video, we're going to be talking about one topic which we may have opposing viewpoints on, and do a little quick, half debate, half conversation about. Joining me today is Akuma Soul.
Hello, hello, hello.
So, what are we going to talk about today, this episode?
Well, there's been a lot of rumblings on the internet and just, I'd say, in the world in general. What I really want to talk about is normalization of certain racial slurs, and more specifically, it's probably the normalization of the word nigga, or nigger in some people's cases.
Nigger, the N-word.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. Hearing the word doesn't actually bother me, as I'm sure it doesn't bother most black people. I know it doesn't bother you because it's something you hear in rap all the time. I don't particularly listen to rap. But one thing that I've noticed is that it's been more and more that people have been trying to normalize the word itself. Recently, there were a bunch of cases where people like iDubbbz and I'm not sure who else, but other people say the word nigger, and it's like, of course, like I said, that doesn't bother me, but the more I think about it, the more I think this could end up going very badly. And the reason is, I think that once we get to the point where we're, again, it might be slippery slope, but I think once we get to the point where we're normalizing words like nigger, we're going to get to the point where we're going to normalize other words, like other racial slurs, and then we're going to normalize just what is actually considered racism. And we're going to get to the point where racism is actually more normalized, and to the point where nobody really understands what racism is.
Well, from my viewpoint, I believe that normalization comes from, first of all, it has to come from desensitization, right? You hear or see, like, we're talking about the N-word, for example, but another example could be like sex in media or violence in media. You see it so often that it no longer becomes a big deal to you personally, and that just, you multiply that by, the culture that you're in and the population, and then that's how things become normalized. As for the word nigger or nigga, I don't think that it becoming more normal now is a sign of, racism becoming more normal. I actually think it's the opposite. There was once a point in time where, nigger was normalized when it first became a phrase, turn of the 19th century, or where it was just a derivative of the word Negro, and they just, Southern slang turned it into nigger, and it had a racial connotation behind it, superiority behind it. And then for a long time it became taboo. Not really a long time, but I would say at the start of, civil rights movement, it became obviously, oh, you're calling this person a nigger, that means you're an obvious racist, right? And then I would say in the 80s and 90s even, people just didn't say it outright. I believe that's when people started referring to it as the N-word. But nowadays, how nigga has become a colloquialism of...
Colloquialism.
Yeah, of, you're just referring to, at first it was just between black people, and then it became just between minorities, and ever since rap became mainstream, now everybody's saying it. Even excuse my phrasing, but even niggas from other countries are calling each other niggas. So, and yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm done with my point.
I was just gonna say, you're right. You're right in the fact that it's becoming more normalized, and that's kind of my fear. The saying of those who don't learn from history are condemned to repeat it. I really feel that's true because we're gonna get to the point where it's so normal to actually outright speak what's on your mind. And of course, we live in America where it's like freedom of speech, but you also have to live by the idea that freedom of speech does not mean freedom of persecution for your speech. Ultimately, like I work for the government. That's part of my job. If I were to say go out and walk around with an anti-Semitic sign up, or walk around saying anti-Semitic things, and then I were to get fired from my job, would I really have any right to be upset about that? Because I'm not saying it at the job, I'm saying it just walking around outside. But if somebody from my job were to hear it, report it to HR, they would get upset. I can't really say I have the right to be upset about that, because yes, I have freedom of speech, but they also have freedom to persecute me for said speech. I've done something that many people would consider wrong, and I believe that normalizing certain racial slurs like nigger and whatever else, I mean, I rarely use those, mostly because I just don't like the words, and that's just a personal thing. I just don't like the way the words sound. I don't think that all the other racial slurs quite have the connotation and the strength that the word nigger has. And again, that might just be because I'm black, but I think that what I'm trying to say is, I think that if we normalize the word too much, we're going to lose its meaning and lose its relevance. And this comes from the fact that I also think that we've overused the word in black culture as well. I think we've overused it as black people as well.
Well, ultimately, I agree with you on 2 points. That is, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and also that you're free to say what you want, but you're not free from the repercussions of doing so. But the 2 things I retort to that, and why we have the differences of opinion, is that, one, I believe that the intent behind what you say and do matters a lot more than the intent or the idea behind the actions or words matters more than the actions or words themselves. Especially since we live in, a fucking ironic time, where people just say shit sarcastically. There's no, conviction behind a lot of what people say. I think that a lot of people use derogatives ironically, which is how they ultimately have lost their power, in my opinion. And aside from the intent, the context also matters. Some people, I've heard stories of this, get mad that they have to read a book like Huckleberry Finn and it has Nigger Jim in it, right? They don't think that word should be there, even though it's it's a book that comes from that time history. Part of history. Yeah. Or if you're a college student and your history professor says the word nigger during a lecture, I don't think you should really get offended over that, because the context there is he's talking about what happened in the past. So it goes back to that point. If you don't know about your past, you're doomed to repeat it. So when it comes down to it, I think that
it's context. It's context is what you say.
Yes, context and intent. And for most derogative words, derogative terms nowadays, I still think that holds true.
Well, yes,
some words, especially I'm trying to think of one that won't get us kicked off YouTube.
You could probably I don't know. There's not many things that we can't do.
Which is another point entirely of if you say some stuff that somebody doesn't like, and they have the freedom to just allow you to not speak anymore. But
Well, yes, and that's really silly because there's another person who recently got in trouble for anti-Semitic things, which was PewDiePie.
right,
And we could spend hours talking about that. And
we talk about it
thing
a little
is,
bit in our podcast, in our latest podcast, episode 12.
yeah, we talk about it a little bit, but we can spend hours talking about that. And when it comes to things like that, like here's 3 people who do it in different ways. There's iDubbbz, who says it ironically, and he says it ironically, and when you actually hear it from his mouth and the way that he explains why he says it, he doesn't say it with any ill intent. I'm sure iDubbbz, just from watching him, I'm sure he doesn't actually dislike black people in any way. Then there's Louis C.K., who tells a joke about it, and he just straight up says it. And to be honest, I'm almost 100% sure that he doesn't hate black people. Like, I can for the most part say it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Louis C.K. just says it because he doesn't honestly give a crap about anything. Then there is what was his name? Kramer?
Oh yeah. The guy Michael something.
Michael Richards.
Right.
Michael Richards. He says it, and it was probably, I don't even know how many years ago. It was before I really paid attention to things like that, or the internet in general. He just went on that huge racist exploding rant, and I don't even know. I don't know if he hates black people or not, but from the way he was saying it, that had a lot of ill intent.
He was just, yeah, exactly.
That actually had ill intent, and like you said, yeah, it's context. It's context, but I still don't think it should be totally normalized. And like I said before, I think that we as black people have normalized it in our own way too much anyway. I think we've normalized it too much in general. I think that the fact that we say it so regularly in rap has normalized it too much. And I think that if we're gonna go around and we're gonna say it all the time in rap, should we really be too surprised that if white people get into rap and really like the music that we're putting out there, should we really be upset that they're gonna say it too?
I don't like. It's
a part of the song. It's a part of the song.
It is a part of the song. I think if somebody's singing and they just say the words that are in the song, it's not on them, it's on the person who wrote the lyrics. But
exactly.
We've been rattling on, so I love to hear what you, the listener, thinks. So I want to share your opinion. You agree with me? You agree with Akuma, or you have a third opinion? Just let us know. And this has been.
Or if you just want to yell and scream and call me a cuck.
Call both of us niggers.
Yeah. Hell, if you want to just do that, do it on. Hit us up on Twitter. It wouldn't be too much of a surprise.
This has been Critics of Controversy, and until next time.
We'll figure out a tagline because we can't use fuck. So.